The ticking clock, Julian Blackwood's 35th birthday celebration at the flagship Blackwood Grand Hotel, was exactly as he expected. Meticulously planned, excessively lavish, and utterly hollow. Champagne flowed freely from crystal fountains as New York's elite circled like well-dressed sharks, each hoping to take a bite of his attention. He stood alone on the balcony overlooking Central Park, loosening his bow tie and wondering how many of these people would attend if he were just Julian, not Julian Blackwood, sole heir to a hotel empire spanning 6 continents. There you are. His father's voice cut through his thoughts. Richard Blackwood, still imposing at 70, approached with a crystal tumbler in hand. "The Hammonds are asking about you. Their daughter just returned from Paris," Julian sighed. "Another introduction, another disappointed heiress. When will you accept that I'm not interested in your matchmaking? Perhaps when you show interest in something besides criticizing how I've kept this company afloat for 40 years. Richard's voice remained even, practiced in the art of public composure. "Your grandmother's attorney is here. On my birthday? What couldn't wait until Monday?" Augusta was always one for dramatic timing. "Come." Julian followed his father through the crowd to a private dining room where Walter Thorne, his grandmother's attorney for over 5 decades, waited with a leather portfolio. The old man's expression was unreadable behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Julian," Walter nodded. "Happy birthday. Your grandmother instructed me to deliver this exactly on your 35th birthday." Walter slid a sealed envelope across the table. Julian broke the wax seal and unfolded the heavy parchment inside. "What ridiculous bequest did Augusta leave me this time?" Julian smirked, but his expression froze as he read. "This can't be legal." Julian pushed the letter toward his father, who snatched it up. Walter cleared his throat. "Augusta amended her will 3 years ago. The terms are quite clear. Julian must be legally married by midnight tomorrow, or the entirety of his inheritance, $4.2 billion in assets, including his controlling shares in Blackwood Hotels, transfers to the Blackwood Environmental Foundation." Richard's face paled. "This is absurd. She can't dictate his personal life from the grave. I assure you the clause has been thoroughly vetted by our legal team." Augusta believed marriage would provide Julian with stability and perspective. She felt rather strongly that the future of the Blackwood legacy required grounding. Julian laughed bitterly. 35 years of her criticizing every woman I dated, and now this ultimatum? 27 hours, Walter said, checking his watch. "That's what remains until midnight tomorrow." Richard was already on his phone. "I'm calling Vanessa Pierce. Her father's been angling for a merger for years. She'll understand this arrangement." "You're suggesting I marry someone I barely know?" Julian asked incredulously. "I'm suggesting we protect what 4 generations have built," Richard snapped. "Unless you'd prefer to surrender everything your great-grandfather started to plant some trees?" Julian stared out the window at the city lights, feeling the walls closing in. 27 hours to decide between a loveless marriage or losing everything he'd been raised to believe was his birthright. "I need air," he muttered, striding toward the door. "Where are you going?" his father demanded. "To my last night of freedom," Julian replied without turning back. "Arrange whatever you want. I'll be back in the morning." Ghosts of the past. The morning after his birthday revelation, Julian found himself doing something he hadn't done in years, driving himself without a chauffeur. His Aston Martin wound through Manhattan traffic as he tried to outrun his father's incessant calls. Richard had already scheduled an afternoon meeting with Vanessa Pierce and her father, with plans to draft a prenuptial agreement before dinner. The entire situation felt surreal. Julian pulled into a small cafe in Brooklyn, seeking anonymity and caffeine. The quaint establishment boasted floor-to-ceiling windows filled with potted plants and a sign proudly claiming 100% sustainable, local ingredients. As he waited in line, his attention drifted to a woman addressing a small crowd in the back corner. She stood confidently before a backdrop, displaying Wilderness Reclamation Project, her passionate gestures emphasizing each point about urban green spaces. Something about her seemed hauntingly familiar, the way she tucked her auburn hair behind her ear, the slight dimple that appeared when she smiled. When she turned toward the counter, their eyes met, and Julian felt the floor shift beneath him. "Olivia?" he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. Olivia Winters froze mid-sentence, her professional demeanor faltering for just a moment before she recovered. "Let's take a 15-minute break," she told her group, then approached the counter where Julian stood. "I didn't expect to see a Blackwood in Brooklyn," she said, her voice carrying none of the warmth he remembered, especially not one who thinks nothing of interrupting a community meeting. Julian winced. "I didn't know you'd be here. I was just getting coffee in a sustainable cafe across town from your penthouse. That's new." She ordered a herbal tea, pointedly paying for it herself when Julian reached for his wallet. "How long has it been?" he asked, following her to a small table by the window. 7 years, 4 months? Olivia stirred honey into her tea. "Not that I'm counting." The memories rushed. Back summer afternoons in the gardens of the Blackwood estate in Connecticut, where Olivia's mother had transformed the grounds into legendary botanical showcases. While their parents worked, Julian and Olivia had built elaborate hideouts among the hedgerows, dreaming of adventures beyond the gilded gates. As teenagers, those innocent games had evolved into something deeper, until the summer before college when Julian had ended things, claiming they wanted different futures. In reality, Richard had made it abundantly clear that the gardener's daughter wasn't suitable for the Blackwood heir. "Your mother, is she still—" "She retired last year. Lives in Vermont now." Olivia's gaze was steady. "She actually thanks you, you know. Says if you hadn't broken my heart, I might never have found my purpose." Julian glanced at the presentation materials. "The Wilderness Reclamation Project? We transform urban wastelands into sustainable green spaces. Just secured funding to convert an abandoned lot in Queens into a community garden." Pride colored her voice. "What about you? Still following Richard's master plan for your life?" The question hit with unexpected force. Before Julian could formulate a response that didn't sound pathetic, his phone vibrated with his father's 14th call of the morning. "Some things never change," Olivia noted, watching him silence the call. "Everything's changing." "Actually," the words tumbled out before he could stop them. "My grandmother's will. I have until midnight to get married or I lose everything." Olivia's laugh was genuine. Augusta always did have a flair for drama. "So, who's the lucky woman? One of those socialites your father's been parading before you for years?" "Vanessa Pierce. The meeting's in 3 hours." "Ah." Olivia nodded knowingly. "The merger marriage. How romantic." "It's not like that, but it was exactly like that, and they both knew it." "Well, congratulations in advance." She stood gathering her materials. "I should get back to my group." "Olivia, wait." Julian reached for her hand, surprising them both. "Have dinner with me. For old time's sake." She hesitated, studying his face as if searching for something lost long ago. "Why now, Julian? After 7 years? Because seeing you reminds me of who I used to be before—" He gestured vaguely, encompassing his designer suit, the luxury car outside, the weight of the Blackwood name. "Before you chose all this over anything real?" She gently withdrew her hand. "I have plans tonight. Besides, shouldn't you be preparing for your convenient wedding?" As she walked away, Julian felt something he hadn't experienced in years, the certainty that he was making another mistake he would regret forever. The proposition. The afternoon passed in a blur of lawyers, documents, and thinly veiled greed. Vanessa Pierce, with her calculated smile and cold eyes, discussed their impending marriage as if negotiating a corporate takeover. Her father, telecommunications magnate Franklin Pierce, barely concealed his satisfaction at finally securing a connection to the Blackwood fortune. "The ceremony can be small, immediate family only," Richard was saying as Julian stared out the window of the conference room. "We'll host a proper reception after a suitable period." "I'd prefer something at the plaza," Vanessa countered, not bothering to seek Julian's opinion. "Nothing too elaborate, just 400 or 500 guests." Julian turned back to the table. "And what if I don't agree to this charade?" The room fell silent. Richard's expression hardened. "Then you throw away everything our family has built. Is that what you want?" What did he want? The question haunted Julian as he excused himself from the meeting, ignoring his father's protests. 20 minutes later, his car pulled up outside the modest office building housing the Wilderness Reclamation Project. The receptionist eyed him suspiciously as he asked for Olivia. "Mr. Blackwood." Olivia appeared in the doorway of her office, surprise evident in her expression. "Did we have an appointment?" "No, but I need 10 minutes of your time." When she hesitated, he added, "Please, Liv. It's important." The childhood nickname softened her resolve. She ushered him into a small office dominated by architectural plans and potted native plants. Photos on the wall showed her at various project sites, planting trees with children, cutting ribbons at garden openings, standing proudly beside transformed urban spaces. "You've built something meaningful," Julian said, genuinely impressed. "Unlike some, I didn't have a legacy handed to me." She sat behind her desk. "What's so urgent it couldn't wait until I wasn't at work?" Julian paced the small room. "I can't marry Vanessa. It's everything I've spent my life trying to avoid, becoming my father, making decisions based solely on balance sheets and appearances." "Then don't." Olivia shrugged. "I thought you'd be thrilled to shed the golden handcuffs." "It's not that simple. The foundation that gets everything if I don't marry? It's my grandmother's pet project. But my father has been systematically undermining its work for years. If he loses control of the company, he'll make sure the foundation's board is stacked with his cronies. All that money will go to environmental initiatives that are really just greenwashing for more development." Understanding dawned in Olivia's eyes. "You actually care about the foundation's work?" "I care that it's my grandmother's legacy." She wasn't perfect, but she believed in something bigger than herself. Julian took a deep breath. "Which brings me to why I'm here." "Marry me, Olivia," she laughed, then stopped when she realized he was serious. "You can't be serious. We have history. You know the real me, not the Blackwood heir. It wouldn't be forever, just long enough to satisfy the will's conditions. Afterward, we can quietly divorce, and I'll ensure the foundation's endowment goes to causes you believe in, including your project." Olivia stood, anger flashing in her eyes. "Let me get this straight. You walk back into my life after 7 years and propose a sham marriage as a business transaction? Have you learned nothing? This isn't about business. It's about trust. You're the only person I've ever met who didn't want something from me. And now you want something from me." She walked to the door, holding it open. "Goodbye, Julian." "Wait." He remained seated. "What if I could prove this isn't just about the money? What if I could show you I've changed? Actions, not promises." Her voice softened slightly. "That's always been the difference between us. I build things that last. You make grand gestures when your back is against the wall." As Julian left her office, an idea began forming, one that might cost him everything but could also give him the one thing his money had never been able to buy, a second chance at a life that mattered. Midnight decision. The historic clock tower at the original Blackwood Hotel showed 11:15 p.m. as Julian paced the ornate lobby. Walter Thorne sat nearby, occasionally checking his pocket watch with practiced precision. In the adjacent restaurant, Richard and the Pierces waited with a justice of the peace, growing increasingly impatient. "She's not coming," Julian said finally. Walter adjusted his glasses. "Then perhaps you should join Miss Pierce. 45 minutes remain until the deadline." "I'm not marrying Vanessa," Julian's tone left no room for argument. "Then, I'm obligated to begin the transfer process at midnight." The attorney's expression remained neutral. "Your grandmother was quite specific." Julian's phone buzzed with a text. "Outside. 5 minutes." His heart raced as he read Olivia's message. "I need to step out," he told Walter. "Keep my father occupied." The night air was cool against Julian's face as he exited the hotel. Olivia stood near the fountain, wearing a simple blue dress, her expression unreadable. "You came," Julian said, relief evident in his voice. "To say goodbye properly." She hugged herself against the evening chill. "I'm leaving for Seattle tomorrow, expanding the project to the West Coast." "Olivia, let me finish. I've been thinking about what you said, about proving you've changed." She studied him carefully. "Have you really? Or are you just desperate to keep your fortune?" Julian reached into his jacket and withdrew a thick envelope. "Before you decide, there's something you should see." Inside was a legal document transferring 50% of Julian's shares in Blackwood Hotels, worth over $1 billion, to the Wilderness Reclamation Project, effective immediately and irrevocable regardless of the will's outcome. "I don't understand," Olivia whispered, scanning the document. "This is dated yesterday." "Whether I get married tonight or not, whether I keep my inheritance or lose it all, that transfer stands." Julian gestured toward the hotel. "I could walk in there right now and marry Vanessa to save the rest of my inheritance. That's what my father expects. It's what I would have done 7 years ago." "But you're not going to," Olivia realized, studying his face. "Because I finally understand what my grandmother was trying to teach me. This was never about getting married, it was about recognizing what truly matters." He took her hands in his. "I don't want to marry you as a business arrangement, Olivia. If you walk away tonight, I lose my inheritance but gain something more valuable, the knowledge that I finally made the right choice, even if it came too late for us." The clock began to chime. 15 minutes to midnight. Olivia stared at the document, then back at Julian. "You're really willing to lose everything? I already lost what mattered most when I let you go." The truth of his words surprised even him. "This isn't about the deadline anymore. It's about finally being honest. With you, with myself. And if I said yes, would you resent me when the novelty wears off and you're left with half of what you once had? I'd be grateful for the chance to build something real, something that's ours, not my family's, not my grandmother's vision." Julian glanced at the clock. "But that's not why I'm asking. I'm asking because seeing you again made me realize what I've become, and I don't want that life anymore, with or without the Blackwood fortune." 10 minutes to midnight. Olivia closed her eyes, years of hurt and hope warring across her features. When she opened them, resolution shone through. "I need to see it through, watch you make this choice without me as your safety net. If you're serious about changing, prove it. Walk away from both options, the convenient marriage and me." Julian felt a weight lift from his shoulders. "You're right. I need to make this choice for myself." Together, they walked back into the hotel lobby where Walter, Richard, and the Pierces all looked up expectantly. "It's about time," Richard began, but Julian raised a hand to silence him. "I've made my decision," Julian announced as the clock struck 11:55. "I'm not getting married tonight, not to Vanessa, not to anyone. I release all claim to my inheritance under the terms of my grandmother's will." Richard's face contorted with rage. "You can't be serious. Everything we've built will continue without me," Julian finished calmly. "Some legacies aren't worth the cost, Father." As the final chime of midnight echoed through the lobby, Julian turned to Olivia with a smile that held no regret, only possibility. "Would you like to get coffee sometime? As friends?" Beyond inheritance. Spring blossomed across the community garden in Queens, transforming what had once been an abandoned lot into a vibrant oasis. Children raced along meandering paths while their parents tended raised beds bursting with vegetables and herbs. At the center, beneath a pergola draped with climbing roses, Julian adjusted a solar-powered irrigation system, his latest contribution to the project. 6 months had passed since he'd walked away from the Blackwood fortune. The media frenzy had been intense at first. Billionaire heir chooses love over money made for irresistible headlines, despite being only partially accurate. Julian hadn't chosen Olivia that night. He'd chosen himself, his own integrity. What followed was unexpected for them both. "The tomato seedlings are ready for transplanting," Olivia said, approaching with a tray of tiny plants. Her wilderness reclamation project had expanded dramatically since receiving Julian's shares, now operating in 12 cities with plans for international projects. Julian smiled, still sometimes struck by the simple pleasure of soil beneath his fingernails, something the former him would have found unthinkable. "The children's section is prepared. Madeline has been checking daily to see if it's time." 8-year-old Madeline was the daughter of a local single mother who worked long hours. She had appointed herself Julian's unofficial assistant, solemnly inspecting his work and offering surprisingly insightful suggestions. Mr. Julian? The girl in question raced toward them, pigtails flying. Is today tomato day? You promised I could help. Just in time, Julian laughed, kneeling to show her the seedlings. Remember how I taught you to handle them gently? As Madeline carefully transferred the first seedling, Julian caught Olivia, watching them with a soft expression he was still getting accustomed to. Their relationship had evolved slowly. Coffee as friends had led to project collaborations, which gradually became dinners, long walks, and eventually a connection deeper than what they'd shared in their youth. This time built on shared purpose rather than merely shared history. Later that evening, they sat on the rooftop garden of Julian's new apartment, modest by Blackwood standards but with unobstructed sunset views that no penthouse could match. The board meeting went well, Olivia said, sipping her tea. Your grandmother would be proud of how the foundation's grown. In a surprising twist, Augusta's will had contained a secondary clause. If Julian willingly surrendered his inheritance for principled reasons, as verified by Walter Thorne, he would be granted a position as co-director of the Blackwood Environmental Foundation alongside the existing board. The provision had been her final test, and one she perhaps never expected him to pass. She was playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers, Julian mused, including my father. Richard had not taken the development well. After failing to contest the will, he'd retreated to the London office, communicating with Julian only through intermediaries. The company continued under professional management, with the foundation's influence ensuring more sustainable practices across the hotel chain. There's something I've been meaning to ask you, Julian said, reaching for Olivia's hand. The Seattle project is breaking ground next month. I know you'll need to be there for several weeks to oversee the initial work. The team can handle most of it, she began, but Julian shook his head. I want to come with you. Not just to visit, to stay. I've been talking with some architects. They're about sustainable building techniques for urban settings. He hesitated. But only if you want that. Us, together, building something new. Olivia studied his face, searching for uncertainty but finding none. Are you sure? Seattle's a long way from everything you've known. What I know now is that home isn't about location or possessions. Julian gestured around them, at the garden they'd built together, at the life he'd chosen rather than inherited. It's about purpose. It's about waking up every day knowing your work matters. It's about loving someone who challenges you to be better. Olivia leaned forward, pressing her forehead against his. Then yes, let's build something new together. As darkness fell over the city, lights began to twinkle in windows across the skyline. Among them, the illuminated Blackwood Hotel stood as a reminder of the path not taken and the freedom found in walking away. You know, Olivia said softly, your grandmother's deadline wasn't really about getting married by midnight. Julian raised an eyebrow. No? It was about making a choice before time ran out, choosing the life you wanted, not the one planned for you. She smiled. Some deadlines are just beginnings in disguise. Julian pulled her close, thinking of tomato seedlings and community gardens, of choices that cost everything and somehow gave back more. The true inheritance he'd discovered wasn't in what Augusta had left him in her will. It was in the wisdom to recognize that legacies worth having aren't measured in bank accounts or company shares, but in the courage to rewrite your own story, no matter how intimidating the blank page might seem.